So there is a concept that has been quietly taking over AI research circles this year. It does not have a Wikipedia page yet that most people know about. It does not have a Netflix documentary, but in the last 6 months, it has spawned 2 separate startups that both chose it as their name, shown up in the roadmaps of labs from San Francisco to Beijing, and prompted Georgetown's security think tank to assemble an expert panel specifically to study whether it is coming and what happens when it does. The concept is RSI, Recursive Self-Improvement, and if you have not heard of it yet, you will. In basic terms, RSI refers to an AI system that can continuously upgrade itself without human involvement. The idea is a closed loop. The AI identifies ways to improve its own architecture, training process, or capabilities, implements those improvements, and uses the better version of itself to find the next set of improvements. At some point in that loop, the humans who started it are no longer needed, and are no longer even helpful. The system improves faster than any human team could direct it, limited only by the compute it can access. That is the dream, or the nightmare, depending on where you stand. And right now, a number of serious researchers are actively chasing it. The most public example is Andrej Karpathy. If you follow AI closely, you know the name. Former director of AI at Tesla, former core researcher at OpenAI, recently hired onto Anthropic's pre-training team. On March 7, 2026, Karpathy released a project on GitHub called AutoResearch. The RADME opens with a fictional future where autonomous AI swarms run all frontier research while humans do other things. The code behind it is almost deliberately minimal. You give an AI agent a small but real LLM training setup. You write a markdown file describing what good research looks like. You walk away. The agent modifies code, runs a 5-minute training job, checks whether the result improved, keeps the change if it did, rolls it back if it did not, and repeats indefinitely. You wake up the next morning to a log of experiments and, ideally, a better model. No complex configs, no distributed training. 1 GPU, 1 file, 1 metric. In Karpathy's own 2-day extended run, the agent ran 700 experiments and stacked 20 additive improvements, dropping the time to GPT-2 benchmark from 2.02 hours to 1.80. Within a month, AutoResearch had 66,000 GitHub stars and 9,600 forks. VentureBeat called the underlying pattern the Karpathy loop. The broader research community built dozens of derivative projects, and Karpathy himself described the larger trajectory. We moved from vibe coding, where a human prompts an AI and reviews the output, to agentic engineering, where a human orchestrates agents in real time, to what AutoResearch represents, fully independent research, where the human sets the direction and the agent runs on its own. 2 separate startups have now taken RSI as their explicit goal. Richard Socher, one of the most respected figures in natural language processing, launched a company called Recursive Superintelligence in May 2026 with the stated mission of building what he described as truly recursive, self-improving superintelligence at scale, meaning the entire process of ideation, implementation, and validation of research ideas would be automatic. Sarah Hooker, who built her reputation at Cohere and Google Brain, launched a tool called Auto Scientist through her company Adaption, designed to automate frontier training runs by using agents to make incremental improvements on full-scale models. And Doris Shin, founder of Disarray, drew serious attention when her self-trained machine learning agent took home 28 medals in a recent Kaggle competition, beating out many human-trained counterparts. Shin's take on the timeline is worth quoting directly. Given infinite compute and infinite time horizon, she told TechCrunch, "We are already there." She called it not a creative endeavor, but a lot of meat and potatoes engineering. Here is where the story gets more complicated, because for every person building toward RSI, there is a researcher arguing, carefully, that the industry has no idea how far away it actually is. Helen Toner is the director of Georgetown's Center for Security and Emerging Technology and a former board member at OpenAI. When her team assembled a group of experts to study RSI, they found a major split in assessments. Some researchers expected an imminent superintelligence-style explosion once the threshold was crossed. Others expected slower, incremental progress and an eventual plateau. The only thing they agreed on was that recursion makes the future especially difficult to predict. Toner's own definition of RSI is stricter than most of the current activity warrants. Simply using AI tools to do AI research is not RSI. That is just using AI for as much as you can, she told TechCrunch. The classic definition of RSI requires that no humans are needed. Not fewer humans, no humans. The most useful framework for thinking about where the industry actually sits comes from METR researcher Ajay Kotra, who drew a map of the milestones between here and RSI. The first milestone she calls adequacy. The system can still perform research after all humans are removed, even if the resulting research is not as valuable or efficient as human-led work. Parity comes when an AI-only system is as good at research as a human-only system, and supremacy, the final stage, is when an AI-only system outperforms the best human-AI collaborative teams. Kotra's assessment of where we are, AI is very close to the adequacy threshold. She wrote that she would not be totally shocked if that milestone had already passed. On parity, she is less clear about timing, but her projection, once parity is reached, is stark. She thinks it would massively accelerate the pace of AI progress, leading to AI research supremacy within another year. And then there is the evidence from inside the labs themselves. In January 2026, one of Anthropic's lead engineers for Claude Code estimated that close to 100% of his team's code was being written by the tool itself. That is not a research milestone. That is a production engineering team at one of the most safety-conscious AI labs in the world, using Claude to write Claude. In the Mythos preview survey released in April, 5 out of 18 Anthropic engineers said they believed that with harness improvements, that version of Mythos could soon substitute for a mid-level programmer, someone capable of running complex, involved projects without supervision. The report listed the model's remaining weaknesses: self-managing ambiguous week-long tasks, understanding organizational priorities, taste, verification, instruction following, and epistemics. In other words, its weaknesses are everything involved with self-direction, which is also the cornerstone of RSI. Sundar Pichai, whose company employs more AI researchers than almost anyone else on Earth, was asked about RSI in a recent podcast interview and gave an answer that was notable for what it did not say. He acknowledged that the industry is definitely making progress and called it a continuum. Then he said, in the way people describe RSI, that would represent a next level of acceleration, and we are not quite there yet. Quite there yet is not the same as not close. And from a CEO who rarely qualifies his statements about AI capability, it is the most careful answer he could have given. Toner's framing of the larger challenge is the one that stays with you. She reaches back to the history of computing to explain why RSI is not just a scaling problem. The progression from machine language to assembly to compiled languages was a progression of abstraction. Each layer moved humans further from the guts of the machine. But at every stage, the human was still, in some intuitive sense, running the show. RSI is the proposal to remove that. Not to abstract human judgment one more layer, but to eliminate the need for it entirely. Whether AI systems can cross that threshold is an open engineering question. Whether they should is a different question entirely, and one the industry is conspicuously not stopping to answer. The irony is that the same models being used to approach RSI, Claude, GPT, the agentic systems running AutoResearch and AutoScientist overnight, were already being used to draft the safety frameworks meant to govern them. The loop is already starting to close, just not in the direction most people are paying attention to. AutoResearch's README opens with a fictional future. Every major AI lab's roadmap implies the same one. The difference between the two is who gets to decide when the loop closes, and whether that decision is made deliberately or by default. Thanks for watching. This is AI TIDES, and I'll see you in the next one.